If you want to get the Unleashed, check the link in the description below. It's now available for Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fujifilm, and Panasonic cameras. Every purchase made through this link helps the channel grow.
Hey guys, this is Emeric from Emeric's Timelapse and welcome back to a new video. I'm actually pretty excited to do this one today because we are going to be reviewing this. This is called the Unleashed by Foolography, and they actually sent me 2 units, one for my 5D Mark III, another one for my 5D Mark IV, and today I'm going to use both of them to actually shoot 2 day-to-night time lapses. Because yes, they have an auto ramping feature. So I want to test these features to see if it's going to create a good day-to-night time lapse exactly like I would do it manually if I was changing the settings myself on the camera. So this is what we're going to be doing today here in Glendale. Well, the clouds are actually coming back a little bit. Hopefully there will be in my shots, which never happens, but let's do it. Let's shoot a couple of day-to-night time lapses with the Unleashed by Foolography.
The Unleashed by Foolography is a wireless Bluetooth intervalometer that plugs directly into your camera and lets you control your entire setup, including camera settings and intervals from your smartphone. At the time I'm doing this video, the device is supported by Canon and Nikon cameras only, but Foolography is working on a new model for Sony, Fujifilm, and Panasonic. With the Unleashed, you can shoot a time-lapse, shoot a day-to-night time-lapse using the auto-ramping mode, or just change the settings manually, shoot long exposure up to 4.6 hours, start or stop videos, and control several cameras at the same time, using only one smartphone. You don't even need to charge anything as the device is using the camera power to work. Let's go back to Glendale and shoot a day-to-night time-lapse using the auto-ramping feature.
I'm going to set up the first one right there. We can actually control more than one Unleashed with only one iPhone, which is really cool. So I'm going to do a quick screen recording right there on my phone. So I'm going to go in the app, Unleashed, obviously. So since the other camera is on, I'm going to turn it off. Okay. And now on my screen, I should see only one. Okay, 5D Mark IV, perfect. So I'm going to click on that one. And as you can see, I can see all the settings, my interval, my duration. And this is exactly what I have on the camera right here. What we want to do today is an auto ramping. So I'm going to go in the menu here, all right, auto ramp, and I'm going to select this camera. Okay, so this is the first step. I'm going to check if my settings are correct. That looks pretty good. I might want to change maybe the shutter speed a little bit. I'm going to go to 250 on the phone, and poof, you can see 250. You can see how quick this is. This is using Bluetooth. Okay, so I'm going to come back and set up my day tonight. My interval, I think I'm going to go today with 7 seconds. Duration, 6:15, maybe an hour and a half. It's pretty good. An hour and 30 minutes. I might stop it before, depending on how dark it is outside. Okay, for the algorithm, we're going to go with the sunset beta. For the day, we can have the minimum settings during the day. So right now I can select my settings I have right here. So 1/250 of a second, 7.1, and ISO 100 will be the brighter I want to go. No, the darker I want to go, sorry. And the maximum night settings is the settings you don't want the camera to go over. So at night, since we have 7 seconds, we're going to go with 5 second maximum shutter speed. They ask for a 2 second delay. I might want to go 6.3 and maybe ISO maximum 800 should be enough. I don't think the camera is going to reach those settings, but you never know. And the adjust here is going to be for the exposure. I'm going to explain it later as well. Okay. So then we're good to go. 1 hour, 29 minutes. Yeah, that's fine. And then I can launch the time lapse. And as you can see, it's taking it. How cool is this? Alright guys, it's been about, what, 20 minutes? We started the first camera, the wide angle, and the Unleashed actually changed the settings a couple times already. It went from 1,250, sorry, to 1,160. So it opened the shutter speed twice, which is, I think, it looks kind of nice. The light hasn't been really changing so much, so I think it makes sense. And right now I'm going to set up the close-up shot with the second camera and a second unleashed. So you can see it right there on the screen. I'm going to select this one. All right, we're going to select pretty much the same settings. Obviously check on your live view if it looks good. So like right now it looks fine. I don't think I have anything to change. Duration, I think we can go maybe an hour and 15 since we're starting the time lapse a little later. Okay, for the algorithm, we can select the same one, sunset beta. For the day, minimum day settings, I'm gonna select the settings I have right now. I don't want the camera to go much darker than this. 7.1 and 100, okay. And for the nights, same thing, since we're gonna have a 7-second interval, we can do 5 second, 6.3, maybe we can go 5.6 since we're like just on the downtown skyline, and then 500 should work. Okay, so right now it's actually red on my screen because I have to change the interval to 7 second. Okay, perfect. They want a 2-second delay. I'll be careful. Obviously we can do 5-second shutter speed and 5-second interval. It would not work. So I think, you know, I can even click right here and the time lapse is working now. How cool is this? And I'm actually managing 2 unleashed with 1 iPhone. This is why I love this tool. You don't need to charge the tool. It's like you can use only 1 iPhone with, you know, several cameras. Right now, so far, the auto ramping seems to be working fine. But yeah, we'll see at the end of this video if it was worth it. Alright guys, so actually both, hey, this is my camera guy.
I use the camera, but
not right now. But right now actually the 2 cameras are like 1/100 of a second, so it's working well. And this one is 125, so they're almost the same settings. But what's interesting today is we have some clouds covering the sun right now. But maybe 20 minutes before the sunset, the light is gonna go through again and it's gonna light up the entire scene. So we'll see if the unleashed actually going darker when this happened, to see if they adjust back and forth, to kind of adjust, you know, the exposure on the photos. That's going to be kind of interesting to see if it works. Yeah, right now still changing the shutter speed, working great. The sun is coming back, it's making its way through the clouds. There was like a big bird right here. Both cameras right now have the exact same settings. 180 of a second, 7.1 and ISO 100. And as the sun comes back, let's see if the unleashed keeps the same settings or go darker, you know, go back to maybe 100, 125. Or maybe it's not going to be, you know, enough sunlight, so it might not change at all. We'll see in a few seconds. But it's definitely getting brighter right there. The unleashed, both of them, I've been changing the shutter speed, which is perfect. This is the way I do it manually. I change the shutter speed, then the aperture, then the ISO last. So let's see if this is what they're going to be doing today. So far, so good. The camera is still, you know, staying over 0 on the exposure value here, and then 1/3 of a stop, minus 1/3 of a stop here, so we're pretty good.
As you can see here, the unleashed changed the shutter speed from 160 to 150 of a second. The fact that it's changing the shutter speed first, then aperture and ISO is a big deal for me, and the reason why I can trust the tool. I know it's going to do an exposure ramping as smooth as if I was doing it manually. After 1 hour of shooting and checking the pictures once in a while, I started to have an idea on what the wireless intervalometer is really worth. Alright guys, the sun has set, as you can see in the back. The 2 unleashed still have the same settings. It's not quite the same angle, but it makes sense because it's kind of the same, you know, lighting outside, and it just changed again to 110. This one should be changing really soon. So far so good. It has only been changing the shutter speed,
So let's check on the app right now. You can see you have the proof in front of you, right there, or right there, I don't know, this way.
Yeah.
You can see right here actually, F10, no, F7.1, 1/10 of a second, and ISO 100. So I can check for the 5D Mark IV maybe. Let's check the 5D Mark IV. Yeah, there's 26 minutes left, so we're almost done. 18-second clip. You know, so far it's been working really well. We really didn't have anything to do. Like the two Unleashed did everything by themselves, and I'm actually pretty impressed right now. At some point when the sun came back, it was maybe a tiny bit bright. If I was changing the settings manually, I probably would have, you know, go back the other way. But you know, we're shooting RAW, so we should be fine anytime soon now. Since the light is changing quite fast after sunset, we should see live right now going to 1/8 of a second. There it is, 1/8 of a second, and you have, you know, I'm not touching it. Anyway, that's pretty interesting auto ramping. I actually can't wait to see how it's going to look like on LRT Timelapse.
So when I first used the Unleashed, the auto ramping feature, I was kind of confused on what the percentage meant in the adjust exposure setting. So I sent an email to the team, and this is actually what they shared with me. The LRT Timelapse algorithm are an implementation of Gunther Wegner algorithm, the creator of LRT Timelapse, designed specifically for daylight to Milky Way transitions. In the darkest night skies, the camera EV meter becomes less reliable and, what's worse, inconsistent. So this algorithm is based on the image histogram to calculate a single average luminance value for each image. The biggest difference for the photographer is how she or he manually make adjustment if he wants to tweak the algorithm output. On the EV-based algorithm, the adjustment is made in 1/3 stop steps. On the LRT algorithm, the adjustment is in 10% steps. With this adjustment, you are essentially adjusting the reference luminance value by 10%. Now, with both of these adjustment values, there's an important thing to know. The adjustment is not immediate, but is rather an adjustment of the targets. With EV meter smoothing, you're moving the target from, let's say, 0 to -0.7. The readings are still average and will slowly adjust settings in 1/3 stop steps toward this new target. With the LRT algorithm, it's even trickier as they can only operate in one direction. This means that when you make an adjustment to get a darker image during sunset, the algorithm will have no choice but to stop making any adjustment until the scene has gotten darker and match the darker reference luminance. So Foolography advised us to use the adjustment value with care, only make changes by 10% at a time, and wait until the Unleashed actually change the camera settings before making further adjustments. This might easily take several minutes, so be patient, they said. Yes, it is a lot of information, but I really wanted to share because I think it's actually interesting to understand how it works. And I now understand why the LRT algorithm never went darker in my time lapses, even though the scene became brighter at some point. It only goes one direction. But I almost have to think ahead. Like if I know my scene is gonna get brighter in 5 or 10 minutes, maybe I should start changing the exposure right now and maybe select -10 or -20% to be safe. If you have a very bright sky, for example, maybe you could start your time lapse with -10 or -20%, and then when the night comes, go back to 0. But just so you know, they are working on developing a new algorithm that will be the best of both worlds.
Alright guys, as you can see, it's almost nighttime. We still have a little bit of a daylight, but this camera right here actually reached 5 seconds, which is the maximum shutter speed I asked Unleashed. So now let's see if the camera is going to change the shutter speed. No, the aperture. It should be changing the aperture once, and the ISO up to 800. So let's see what it does. Probably have nice lighting on my face right now as the cars. Alright guys, as you can see, probably not because it's too far, but the camera just changed the aperture to 6.3, which is the maximum, and BAF ISO as well. ISO. So you can see the camera actually Unleashed changed the aperture, then the ISO in a matter of 2 or 3 frames. So we'll see on LRT Timelapse how it looks like. It actually was maybe a little too fast. I would wait at least 5 to 10 frames every time I change the settings. It's only small values. It's like 1/4 of a stop, so it shouldn't be too much of a big deal. This one right here, it's a close-up shot of downtown. Same thing, 5 second, 6:3, and now it should be changing the ISO all the way to 800, or maybe less, depending, of the exposure. But yeah, this is it. Let's go back on LRTimelapse. Let's go back to the studio. We're gonna actually upload the 2 sequences on LRTimelapse to see how both curves look like, the exposure. And obviously I'm gonna be showing you at the end of this video both time lapses and tell you what I think of Unleashed.
Anyway guys, we're back at the studio here in Los Angeles. Woo. And look at this, we're gonna analyze the 2 curves today on LRTimelapse. I'm gonna show you then the 2 final time lapses, and then at the end of this video, I'm gonna tell you what I think of the product. So you can see the blue curve here is my preview luminance curve, and honestly, it is amazingly straight. Like you can see at the end, it's going up a little bit, then down really fast. I'm not 100% sure what happened. Apparently it's changed. You can see here ISO 100, then 125, then 160. For some reason, it changed 2 times. It changed the ISO twice in like 2 photos, which is definitely not recommended, but at the end it was pretty fine. I believe towards the end on this shot, I actually adjust the exposure to like minus 50%. Maybe that's why actually it stopped changing the settings here. It was trying to kind of adjust the exposure from what I asked, the Unleashed to do, like minus 50%. But otherwise, the entire time, it's not even here, it's not overexposed. It's a little bright, but it's not overexposed. But otherwise, look how the blue curve, how straight it is. And then the orange one on top of it is actually my Holy Grail Wizard, which was super easy to actually do. And then the yellow one is my exposure on Lightroom. So you can see here, it's pretty much the same. Here, I went up a little bit, maybe, I don't know, plus 0.5 stop, I would say, because it was going down. And then it makes sense here, it was going up, so I went down. I used other products that would also do the auto ramping, and I don't remember seeing a curve that straight. What is great with the Unleashed is they actually use the LRTimelapse algorithm. So, they're kind of linked to each other, and I feel like it's amazing because like I trust LRTimelapse like no other software. So I know the Unleashed is going to do a good job. Look at the curve of the wide angle really quickly. This is a screenshot. Oops. This is a screenshot of the curve of the wide angle. It is pretty much the same thing. It's super straight, a little underexposed, and towards the end, for some reason, it's going up. I gotta check this with the developers to see what is up. Well, at night, it's usually go up a little bit for some reason. Maybe the Unleashed wants to go back around 0 on the exposure value, so that's what it's doing. It's going up at night, but towards around sunset, it's definitely a little bit underexposed, and this is what I saw on my camera. It was like minus 1/3 usually. Minus 2/3 of a stop most of the time on my exposure value, which is perfect, So here it is. This is the 2 final time lapse. I cleaned them. I removed obviously all the brightness and contrast flicker. I removed the birds and everything, but it is normal speed and the way I cropped them. And to be honest, yes, they sent me 2 units. I've been working with them in the background a little bit. And I want to be honest with you, when I review products, when I do like a video like this, I really want to be honest and tell you what I like, what I don't like. But there's honestly nothing I don't like with this product. It's been super easy to use. The first time I used it, the first time I tried the auto ramping in New York City, I actually had some issues with it, but it was my own fault because I did not update the firmware, and I actually had an old version of the iPhone app. So it was working fine until at some point it didn't change the settings, so I had to restart it, and then it worked again. And I think I played too much with the adjust exposure on the app, and since it takes some time to do the transition, well, I was kind of impatient and it went too fast up and down. So I feel like since it was the first time I was using it, I'm like, okay, there's definitely something I'm doing wrong. The firmware was not up to date and the app was not up to date. So I updated all of them, and this is what I wanted to try also with 2 different Unleashed on 2 different cameras to see if you know, two products are going to be working fine, you know. And it did work fine. I ended up with pretty much the same settings, even though it was not exactly the same composition. I pretty much had the same settings on both Unleashed, which was amazing. So far, Unleashed has been working only with Canon and Nikon cameras, but actually Foolography just released a new model that's going to work with Sony, Fujifilm, and Panasonic. Yes, with a brand new model, so it's not exactly the same one that you're gonna see, you know, in the video right here. It's even a better one. And if you don't have a Canon or a Nikon, well, it's all good because it works now with Sony, Fujifilm, and Panasonic, along with Canon and Nikon, obviously. And depending on when you're watching this video, just check the link in the description for the Kickstarter. If you purchase one through the link in the description, I'm actually gonna make a little bit of money, so thank you so much. So if you have any question about the Unleashed, about, you know, all their products, just let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Yeah.